Welcome, gentle readers, to Everything is Everything. I'm Amit. This is my good friend Ajay. And today we have another presence with us, a corporeal presence, not here in person, but here on my phone. So I was in Delhi recently, actually 3 months ago, and I'm a bit late in showing this to you. But one of my writing students recorded a message for you. And she insisted that I play it for you at some point in time. And I said I will play it for him during the show live, right? And you can see his reaction as he sees it. I'm now going to play that message for you. Okay, I'll just.
Hi Ajay, my name is Pooja Sharma, and you wouldn't remember, but we spoke sometime back in 2000, 2001 when I was a final year student at the College of Business Studies in DU, and I was doing a project on futures and options, and for all the research that I was doing, 90% of it came bearing your name. So I reached out to you on email, not expecting to hear back from you, and I was just so amazed to hear back from you quite promptly. And you made the time, and whatever was the medium of the day, I forget what platform you used, but we actually did a video call, and we ended up talking for more than an hour. You spent that time explaining how derivatives work, what was happening, how the policy was coming together, what NSE was doing, and I went back a lot smarter. I aced the subject, and I think that experience taught me that it's very important to make time for young people, and it stayed with me because every time a young person reaches out to me, I make the time for them now. And thank you so much for impacting my life in that manner. And I'm so excited to see you on the show with Amit, and I'm so excited that I finally got to meet Amit and pass on this message to you. Thank you for all that you do.
Ajay, do you remember her?
No, I don't remember a cent of this.
Wow, okay. Well, it actually clearly happened, and it is so much the kind of person that you actually are, going out of your way to help people when you have no reason to do so, Ajay Shah. That I immediately said, yeah, that's very much the guy, hasn't changed clearly. What do you have to say in response to this?
I've done this a lot, and I want to tell a story. So in the late 90s, a lot of the uh, interesting developments in Indian finance involved the rise of derivatives trading. And in that period, there was a bunch of people who tended to get invited to do classes and seminars and teaching and a whole bunch of those things. So I got plenty of these invites, and I've done lots of travel all around the country and teaching and introductory seminars and such like. I think it was on CNBC TV 18 at the time. I don't remember what it was called. That Damini Kumari did a bunch of tutorial style conversations with me, which were played over and over again twice a day. So basically, a lot of people got used to the idea that I am this teacher type character in the world of derivatives. Then started the emails. So random people would write to me saying, Ajay, I'm doing this. Do you think it is a good idea? Or Ajay, I'm doing this and it is going wrong. What should I do to fix it? And at first, like, I was a little taken aback, like, dude, I'm not going to figure out what you are doing and debug it for you. But by the fifth email, I got the message that the good Lord had intended for me to be a help desk. So I decided to discharge my Dharma, and I faithfully replied to all these emails. So a whole bunch of random people in India have sent me emails, like careful, thorough, detailed emails. I'm thinking this. What do you think? Is it a good idea? It will run into this problem. How should I change this to do that? And I have replied to all of them saying, here, this is what I think would work for you. So I kept on doing this. This, of course, is a more careful conversation of a more academic nature. These two I've done that. Generally, many students, PhD students, early stage academics would reach out to me, and I generally try to make time and talk to them. So
Ajay, help desk Shah. You could have started a family business, and you could have started it and then got your family in, and of course, I only mentioned that because that is the theme of today's show: family businesses. So, in India, family businesses get a bad rap. Like, the way that I've always thought of it is that somebody will start a business and then it'll stay in the family. And, I don't know what the term for it is, Lala family or whatever, but it'll stay like that. They won't get professional management. If they do, that's great. If they don't, things go south. And that's a stereotype that's out there. And it is actually, in a sense, completely false in a country full of family businesses. It is also not true of family businesses outside. There are nuances and nuances. And as you keep saying, it all comes down to structures and incentives. So let's talk a little bit about family businesses today, which is, and kind of bust some of those myths.
So in India, we have a caste system where we look down on traditional families and we revere and extol the professionals. Okay, we believe in meritocracy. The guy who passed some IIT entrance exam is the cool one. Okay, and I just don't share these stereotypes too much. And further, it has led to a world where we equate family businesses and family managers as somehow being bad or second rate or incompetent, and revere the professional, that, oh, you've got a professional, it must be a good person, and somehow all your problems will be solved. And my core thesis for today is that this is a wrong way to think about the world, and we should think about incentives. We should think about the forces that create good and bad decisions inside firms. And there are ways in which professional CEOs can be worse than a family CEO and vice versa. And there are structures that work well and they're difficult to establish. Okay, so this is my main story for today, that firms are complex and we need to go to first principles of incentives. And we should think deeply about the forces in a family CEO firm versus a professional CEO firm, and they are different. So let's get going on building Amitbhai Media Limited.
यार मुझे क्यों ले आया बीच में? But fine, I like the sound of it. Amitbhai Media, let's go with it.
Yeah, so we're going to build Amitbhai Media Limited, a brave new media organization in this country. Okay, and we're going to go through 4 designs. And I want you to focus on each of the 4 designs and sink your mind in it, and immediately the issues and the problems will surface. So we start with Amitbhai Media Limited, where you have 100% of the shares and you are the CEO. Okay, simple. Many such firms all around us in India, that there's somebody who's 100% owner and the CEO, and it's a business, it's up and going. What would go right and what would go wrong? Okay, so first, what would go right is there is complete alignment. The interests of the firm, the interests of the CEO, the interests of the shareholder, no difficulty on alignment. You will run hard because you are the 100%. So on incentives, there's no problem. But there is a bunch of other problems. The first problem is that generally too much of your personal wealth is blocked in this one firm. Okay, you are under diversified. Therefore, you become too scared of risk taking, and the firm chronically suffers from inadequate risk taking. Okay, so this is an important idea, that no pain, no gain, no risk, no reward. The only way to build a great business is to roll the dice and to take risks, to take important risks, to take earth-shaking gambles on the way a firm works. Without that, you don't get some firms that succeed outrageously. You get many firms that will die, and that's a good thing. That's capitalism. That is the creative destruction of modern capitalism. But when you are 100% of the firm, odds are a disproportionate share of your wealth is locked in that firm. Now suddenly you become risk averse, you become very cautious, and you won't roll the dice, you won't take chances, you won't take risks, you won't really invest in transformation of the firm. You'll do incremental investment, risk averse, safe, this is working, I'll do a little bit more of that. And actually this inability to take risks and invest tends to create firms that are laggards and firms that are not repositioned for the next wave of markets and technology and product transformations. So oftentimes these firms just move too little, and then they get rendered irrelevant and unprofitable as the years go by. So the flaw is not that the person was a bad one. The flaw is that the whole stance of risk taking was inadequate, and they were too timid in how they thought about the firm and the things that they did with the firm. The second and last difficulty with this firm is concentration of power. Okay, in this firm, you are the little deity, you are the god, you do all the thinking, you make all the decisions. There is no check and balance. There is nobody to restrain you. There is nobody to disagree with you. There is nobody to force arguments and thinking before decisions are made. Bad decisions are made. Money is wasted. Wrong projects are taken up. For example, a sophisticated discussion around risk won't take place because it's you, and you who are doing that conversation. So we know very well this idea of concentration of power, that wherever in the world, in firms, in governments, in society, concentration of power is a wrong thing. It's a bad design. People in the world of business often glorify a strong leader. There is one guy, he makes all the decisions, and he gets things done, and we revere the good CEOs and we scorn the bad ones. A more careful understanding of the world will teach us that actually there is just a lot of dumb luck in this. That the so-called good CEO is a lottery, that certain switches were switched on and off and happened to be the right person at the right time at the right place, and the thing explodes. And many other firms did badly. It's not that the CEO is a bad person. You were in the wrong industry, something in the world changed. So this whole attribution is profoundly wrong, and the business world does wrong to attribute success and failure to that CEO. There's a lot of the world going on. There's a signal to noise ratio problem. A lot of what's happening is in the world, and then the decisions made inside the firm matter. And when power is concentrated in one person, generally the quality of the decisions is inferior. The world is complicated. The world is infinitely complicated. Nobody has figured it out. So again, the mania of the business world, there is a visionary. Steve Jobs understood the world. He made all the right decisions. Excuse me, Steve Jobs made many wrong decisions. He almost took Apple into bankruptcy, okay, and so on. So the business world doesn't get knowledge about the world, and the business world doesn't understand that the world is infinitely complicated, and no strong CEO understands the world. It is only by harnessing many minds that we have a hope of understanding the world better and making better decisions, making fewer mistakes, being able to self-correct, not being so arrogant and so proud that you made a mistake, you'll never correct it, because our egos come in the way. So when power is dispersed, when there are many people thinking, it works out better. And so this is my design number one for your business. Many people start there, and hopefully we'll evolve out of that to a better firm.
All of this is really resonant with me, especially because out of the 4 designs you're going to unveil on us, this actually is my design, in the sense that I think of every creator as being an entrepreneur of his own brand. So in everything I do, I am basically the person. You know that scene in Taxi Driver, I think, where Travis Bickle stands in front of the mirror and says, "You talking to me? You're talking to me? You talking to me?" Or, however he does it. I can't act, of course. And I feel that that's the case with Amitbhai, the shareholder, and Amitbhai, the CEO. And at one level, like you said, there's alignment. Like, I follow my vision. No one tells me what to do. I have, made many sacrifices in terms of not chasing great opportunities, but doing the things that I love doing. And there's complete alignment. But equally, there are problems. For example, there are problems of scale. I can't scale. There are problems of beyond a certain point. There are problems of imagination. I am restricted by whatever my limitations are, whether they are of imagination and knowledge and so on and so forth. And even if I am not corrupted by the power over myself that I have, all those limitations play a key part. I will not be able to see more than a certain amount ahead, as I would if I had great advisors like Ajay Shah. so all of this is absolutely resonant to me and familiar to me, and in a sense I'm kind of happy with this, because don't want to complicate my life too much and all of that. But tell me about the other 3 designs, because I would imagine many firms start exactly like this, and then these limitations kick in and the person realizes that, no, I got to make this
Just for
big.
clarity, where you are right now is with 0 employees, some contractors, but 0 employees. Imagine if you had 100 people working for you, but still you are 100% and you are the CEO. My critique applies even then. So you have skill, but you will make poor decisions because it's you and you. Okay. And power is concentrated. There's too much power in one hand. If you have employees, they don't readily challenge you enough because you're 100%. And you're also setting their wages. You have hire and fire powers over them.
And also, they don't have skin in the game. So their cognitive investment, their imaginative investment is limited.
Okay, so that's design 1 and its limitations. Now let's go to design 2. In design 2, we have Amitbhai at 60% at shareholding of 60%, and Amitbhai is the CEO, and Vaishnav and Namsita are 20-20. Okay, so we've brought in 2 new shareholders. They are minority shareholders. For the rest, you have 60% and you are the CEO. Okay, so let's analyze this design. And in passing, I want to say this is a very common design in India. Lots of so-called family businesses that have listed on the stock market would have some 20, 30, 40% of equity given out to others. But for the rest, it remains a focused family shareholder that dominates. There's a clear identifiable person that owns over 50% of the shares and is also the CEO. Okay, so this is design 2. Let's go step by step. First of all, incentive alignment, pretty complete. Nothing has really changed about your fire in the belly. You're running hard for you. I mean, I know you'll only get 60% of the take, but 60% is plenty. At 60%, you have very high alignment. Okay. Problem 2, you still have the same difficulty of concentrated power. Okay, it's really you calling the shots. There's nobody there to challenge you. These blokes at 40 don't have any power. So it makes no difference on the problem of the concentration of power. The world is a complicated place. You just don't have enough minds, enough views, enough disagreement to go into a cauldron and come out with better decisions. There is a slight gain in that now a chunk of your personal wealth is that 40% which came out, and you've presumably invested it in some other outlets. So your portfolio is a little bit diversified. But you know what? 60% of the company is still likely to be the biggest single thing on your personal balance sheet. So you will remain pretty risk averse about this firm. And at this point, I also want to say that both in design 1 and in design 2, for a lot of people, their egos are bound up in the firm. So the success and failure of the firm is taken very personally. And then once again, you become risk averse. Your standing in society, your self-esteem would be damaged if the firm did badly and collapsed. So you become risk averse, you're not going to take chances. You just keep on doing the same things. You'll take minor incremental risks and you'll not be able to really transform the firm in a good way. Okay, so design 2 looks different. You've got 40% minority shareholders. You may even have a public listing. You'll go IPO. But fundamentally, it's not a big change compared to design 1. Okay, and it introduces one completely new problem. The problem is that particularly in India, if you own 60% of the company, odds are that you will be able to do unfair things to these two. You will be able to extract more than 60% of the cash. So this is even unfair to them, and then that damages their valuation. That by getting 40% of the equity, if they are only going to get 30% of the cash, then they will downgrade their willingness to pay a good price for the shares of this company. This is just a pervasive problem of the way India works. And this problem is well established and well entrenched in the Indian imagination. And in a way, most of the present company law and SEBI rules about listed companies are fighting this battle. Okay, so there is an attempt by the Indian state at fighting this narrow battle, that how do we make sure that the 40% minority shareholders get 40% of the cash? That's all. This is the one question that has occupied the Indian imagination, that the small people outside, the shareholders, should get a fair deal compared to the insider that has more than 50%. And it's a fair question. It's a legalistically correct question. But this debate has missed the other flaws of this arrangement. The flaw that you are inadequately diversified, and the most important flaw that you have excessive power. You are unshakable. There is no debate, there is no discussion. There are no 10 minds, 100 minds participating in decisions. So that is the core flaw of this arrangement, and at 60% you will be risk averse. So really this is not a great structure, and this is designed to.
So let's talk about design 3, because it seems that design 2, while superficially it seems like it's different, 60-40 instead of 100-100, it has, the same pros, which is alignment and your incentives are really similar. And it has the same cons, that there's a concentration of power and, risk aversion is still high, etc., etc. What about design 3?
Okay. So in design 3, we do the thing that is loved by the Indian elite, which is we bring some IIT guy as a professional CEO. Okay, so design 3 is just one innovation, that we get a so-called professional CEO. So we've pretty much held everything intact. We still have Amit Varma as the 60% shareholder. Okay, but you now step aside. Now there is a professional CEO who's going to run the shop, and they are 20 and 20 adding up to 40. That's all. Everything else is intact. Now the Indian middle class and the Indian elite will now applaud, because it is claimed that, oh, you're a mere business guy. Okay, you are some uneducated business guy, and that IIT guy is a professional. So somehow we're all supposed to get excited that the professional is a better human being, or there is just an instinctive disrespect for the business class in India, and the instinctive respect that somebody who could solve maths problems in 12th standard is a cool guy. Again, I want to say that we should not go by class stereotypes and the dislike of rich people in India. We should go from first principles and think about incentives. So let's do that. Okay. And for this example, that professional CEO gets a salary and has no equity. Okay. So we're going to keep it simple. We'll change things further as we go. But right now, I want a pure modification that we've got a professional CEO. And for a lot of people in India, they would now start applauding. They'll think, oh, this is so great. The family has stepped away and we have a professional CEO. And somehow the family is less good. Okay, and this professional is supposed to be superior.
At this point, I must point out to gentle readers that our good friend Ajay Shah, he is from IIT, right? So he is a professional and he's coming to my family firm. But so you see where this is going. This is most insidious, but continue.
So now let's go step by step. Whatever be that professional CEO, the CEO has no skin, has 0% shareholding. So there's a lack of alignment, that the shareholders have hunger. The shareholders like to build the firm, like to do something good with the firm. The professional is fundamentally, I have a job, I want stability, I don't want the firm to collapse. I don't want the embarrassment that it did badly on my watch. But for the rest, the professional lacks the level of hunger to fight for the firm in a meaningful way. So you have the same risk aversion problem that you had with the 60% shareholder in charge, that the professional CEO is generally there for a 5-10 year term. Okay, generally the way India works today is a professional CEO is hired for a 5-year term, and if they do well, they get a 10-year term. If they do badly, 2-3 years into the 5-year term, they are ejected. Okay, that's roughly the way CEOs in India work today. So the professional starts and she's thinking, the one thing I don't want is to be sacked at the end of 3 years, because that would be career destruction for me. I will carry a black mark for the rest of my life. So the first 3 years go by with risk aversion, saying you don't want to get sacked. You want to do okay, you want to do reasonably well. So there'll be a great focus on execution. There'll be tightening of cost control here and there. There'll be incremental improvements. You had 20 salespeople, you'll hire 30 salespeople. It'll be an incremental journey of like risk averse, like don't take downside risk. Let the 3 years go by. You're cemented. Nobody's going to sack you. You've been well accepted inside the organization. Don't ruffle feathers. And then you get through to 5 years with a moderately good performance, enough to squeak through for another 5-year contract. And now actually it goes entirely bad because the person thinks now I'm gone. After 5 years, I'm gone. So now again, I want to collect my salary, not make mistakes, don't start big things, don't rock the boat. Okay, so the incentives of the professional CEO are really not right. And this is something that most people in India have not understood enough of. That just because a person carries an IIT degree, it doesn't make them a great CEO. You should think incentives. Okay, so this is on the risk aversion problem, on the incentives problem. Well, what about the fair play around appropriation of cash? Okay, so first is that the 60% Amitbhai has a disproportionate say in hiring the IIT person as a CEO. So odds are that this professional CEO will generally collaborate with Amitbhai on any disproportionate cash extraction. Okay, it's very unlikely that the professional CEO will really make a material difference to cash extraction by the 60%. When the 60% hired that person and can fire that person, it's unlikely that any great changes will happen for the cash flow that goes to the 40%. So the disproportionate cash extraction problem is not solved. You remain 60% shareholder, so you are under diversified, and so you will also as chairman keep nudging the professional CEO, look, dude, don't take too much risk. Don't rock this boat. We have to be very careful. We don't want to destroy this business. It is my family's legacy. We don't want to screw it up. Okay. The messaging will be like, don't take too much risk because you are over invested. Too much of your portfolio is there. Anyway, the CEO has no taste for risk. They are out to not get sacked in 3 years, then squeak through to 5 years, and then coast to 10. So they're not in the world of building a business, of doing something well, and really producing transformative change in the firm. Okay, so we have not solved the problems of design 2 by going to design 3. And actually now there is a whole new problem, which is you have complete concentration of power in the hands of the CEO. Power corrupts. So this CEO is very much power hungry. This CEO consolidates power carefully. The internal organization will experience the machinations of a CEO. Some people will be ejected. Some people will be sidelined. New people will be brought in. The new CEO will consolidate power. All CEOs crave power. The new CEO will consolidate power. And then once again, there is nobody to question that CEO, because Amitbhai at 60% is, as a chairman of the firm, will come by occasionally for conversations with the CEO, is not hands-on running the company. If Amitbhai comes to hands-on run the company, the gossip columns in the newspapers will say this professional CEO actually is not in charge and the promoters are coming back and running the company. Okay, all as if that's a bad thing. Either way, it's a mug's game. Power gets consolidated in the CEO or not, but most of the time power will get consolidated in the CEO. Now you're back to square A, because power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. There are no checks and balances. The world is an infinitely complicated place. Getting a rank in the IIT JEE is not enough to decipher the world. And you need many, many minds to contribute diverse points of view and to have debate and discussion and to be able to recognize mistakes and turn tail and do things differently because you understood that it was wrong. None of that happens because power is consolidated. If there is not a challenge against the power of that professional CEO, the professional CEO is no different from power being consolidated in design 1 and design 2. So having an IIT degree doesn't change things. It's an incentives question. So design 3 actually achieves very little. You've given power to a person without skin and it works pretty badly.
Marvelous. So we started Amitbhai Media Company, and then we decided we need to do more with it. We made it worse with design 2, and we made it even worse with design 3. Yeah. And now we need to get to design 4. Please save Amitbhai Media Limited. Kya kar rahe ho, sir?
Yeah. So in short, so far I am just trying to question the universal Indian middle class and elite view around the words professional CEO. I do not agree. I have seen so many firms in my life and I have just stopped analyzing on that lens that IIT IIM is neither necessary nor sufficient. It's not the stuff of which great companies are made. It is not the stuff of which amazing success is obtained, and you need to think differently. So what is a design 4 that works well? It unfortunately requires a certain amount of skill. The design 4 that works well, and this is really what we learn from experiences all over the world, and these are mature success stories running for decades and decades. The way large complex corporations work all over the world is, first, that there is dispersed shareholding, that there is no 60% Amitbhai, there is no 20% Vaishnav, there is no 20% Namsita. There are very large numbers of shareholders, and there may be 10, 20, 30% of financial institutional shareholders, and the remainder may be the public. There will be a large number of different shareholders. Yeah, you're welcome to have some shares, but no concentrated shareholders. Okay, so that's the first piece of the modern arrangement of what is a corporation. It is dispersed shareholding. There is no promoter. Okay, and that's a revolutionary idea. It is new to India. It is starting to happen in India for the first time in the last 10-15 years. Okay, so many reasons why it has started happening in India, but it's completely new.
And we discussed it in great detail in our episode about finance, history of finance. So I'd recommend that gentle readers, please check that out.
Yeah. So that is the first step, that we stop trying to get concentrated shareholders and we disperse shareholding. There are many, many shareholders. And the shareholders select a board. Generally, the institutional investors select a board of directors. So the board of directors are a very interesting and difficult creature. You need some of important shareholders, some of the important institutional investors, to directly be on the board because they have skin. They have shares in the company, they have 5, 10, 15% of the company, enough for it to matter to them. Okay, that's again the test, that the shareholder on the board should be of such a characteristic that the company doing well or badly matters materially to the shareholder. That's the characteristic of shareholder directors. And the remainder are independent directors, that is, they don't particularly have skin in the game in terms of shares. And then there is one person on the board who is the CEO. Okay, so that's a modern arrangement of a board. One CEO is the board member, and there may be, say, 6 other people, all of whom are not management. There is one manager, that is the CEO, who is a board member, and there are 6 other people. Maybe 3 of them are shareholders and 3 of them are not shareholders, and you get a 7% board. Okay, this is a good board. Now, the role of the board is partly to be the forum where the strategy of the firm is created. So the CEO does not make the strategy alone. Power is not concentrated in the CEO. 7 people have the power to make the strategy. The strategy document has to be approved by the board, and the board needs to intensively debate the strategy document. But the strategy of the firm is controlled by the board, where the CEO is a member. The CEO is 1 out of the 7, but the CEO doesn't control the strategy of the firm. Similarly, the organization design of the firm is controlled by the board, not by the CEO. So the CEO comes to the board and says, here's my thinking, there'll be this kind of division, there'll be this kind of process manual, there'll be this kind of HR structure. And the board debates and many minds come together, and there is a loss of power of the board, a loss of power of the CEO, and the view of the 7 becomes the document using which the firm is run. Okay, so these critical things, how is the firm designed and what is the strategy of the firm, are done at the board. Third, the board holds the CEO accountable. The 6 people come together and look at the CEO saying, what are you doing? Why are you failing? Why did you do this? Why are we not winning? Why is our competitor doing better? Power is not centralized in the CEO, but now the CEO is answerable to the board. The board makes life difficult for the CEO. Many times it's too hot for the CEO to handle and CEOs leave, and that is good and healthy. The power of the CEO is not consolidated. The CEO is not just there indefinitely, regardless of whether the firm does well or the firm does badly. So these are the 3 roles of the board: to choose the strategy, where the CEO is 1 person out of the board; to choose the organization structure, where the CEO is 1 person out of the board; and to hold the CEO accountable, to hold the management team accountable. So the rest of the board is the dominant voice and has the stature in the room, in the meeting. And remember, they hire the CEO. They control the pay package of the CEO. So the CEO is suitably cautious and deferential to the views of the board. And so the board has the power, and the board holds the CEO accountable. So the board will ask questions. What were you doing? Why did we fail? Why are we not growing? Why did our rival grow? What has gone wrong with this? We've been stuck for too many years. We need to get our 5x now. And the board is sufficiently free of the risk-averse downside fear to demand that upside, that no, we got to grow by 5x. This is not good enough. Okay, so this is the modern architecture of how a firm works, about how good firms work all over the world. And it is hard, it is complicated. So now let's go through all the pieces. Inadequate diversification of the CEO or the dominant shareholder, problem has been solved, because we have dispersed shareholding. People have diversified their portfolios, and now everybody is more comfortable and more cold about failure. Because you have many companies, your portfolio is diversified, and some companies will fail, and that's okay. Okay, we've solved that problem. Then the problem of power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. The problem has been solved significantly, because now all the power is not with 1 person, namely the CEO, but the power has been shifted to the board. And so 7 people are thinking about it, and some of them have skin, some of them don't have skin, but power has been split to 7 people, and their arguments, their debates, their intellectual power, their respect in society, their interlocutors out in society are all talking to each of them saying, what are you guys doing? I don't agree with this. Did you know your firm is doing a horrible thing here? Like that, many voices come into the 7 people in the room, and that dispersion produces better decisions. Finally, on the problem of the risk aversion, the CEO will remain risk averse to address that, it's good to give the CEO stock options so that they have a strong upside. They start valuing, if a 5x or a 10x happens to the firm, they will benefit big time. Now they'll be a little more inclined to take risk. So through this overall solution, we have addressed all the problems of the firm. However, this is hard to do. This is not something that can be codified in laws. This is culture. That it takes decades and decades for a country to evolve to this kind of power relationship. In India today, in the mainstream world of business, we're still in a primitive great man theory. We want to give power to the CEO, and we say, if the firm succeeded, it's all the credit of the CEO. If the firm failed, it's all the failure of the CEO. And this is just wrong. This is poor knowledge of social sciences and of the richness and complexity of the world. We are at a very basic stage. But the beauty is the emergence of these dispersed shareholding firms has started happening. So that question is being placed before the Indian society, saying, ready or not, these firms are here. Now, what are you going to do about it? And many people in India are now going to walk this journey of thinking about the checks and balances inside firms, and how do you not go towards pure power in the hands of the CEO? How do you disperse power? How do you improve thinking? How do you create more space for strategy and not just put your head in the ground and keep on doing execution, which is a comfort zone for a CEO? Or how do you prevent a CEO from concentrating power? All these questions are now the cutting edge of the evolution of India as an economy. And I'll just close with one last point, which is the story of India's emergence from being a poor country to our dreams of becoming a rich country is entirely in the firms. A rich country is made of sophisticated firms. A poor country is made of bad firms. All the work in public policy is about creating the conditions where the firms become better. In addition, this is a field where the rules of the game, the culture, the norms, the power structure in the room, the animal behavior of those 7 people in the room is not written in law, is not written by a government, is not done in the world of public policy, though it can be enabled slightly by public policy. This is a journey that has to be undertaken in the Indian elite. It is the culture of the Indian elite which can, and in my opinion will increasingly, learn what it means to be a CEO, to be a board, to create checks and balances, to disperse power, to go away from mere execution to dreaming strategy.
You mentioned animal behavior, and at this point, gentle readers, I must tell you that you might have heard a little while back what sounded like the screaming of a cat. It wasn't. It was a wailing of a CEO who had been ejected by the animal behavior of an unruly board. Now, this is almost illuminating, and I have a question here, which is that it seems to me that the journey from design 3 to design 4 is much vaster and much more radical than the journey between the first 3, right? And if I am running a family firm today, let's say I started as Amitbhai Media, now I'm a family firm, but I recognize the failings of that, you know. How do I think about it? Because one statistic that, is, I think, profoundly important for all of us to note and is kind of true worldwide is that when a family becomes wealthy, 70% of that wealth is lost by the next generation, 90% is lost by the generation after that. So just because a firm is founded by someone doesn't mean that, the descendants will be able to keep it going. And this applies in various contexts. Like I think of the Nehrus, I think Motilal Nehru downwards, they just kind of got lesser and lesser as people. But leaving that aside, every Dhirubai is not going to have a Mukesh. That was just getting extraordinarily lucky. Most of the time, I might be running a family firm. I might recognize that within my own family, the incentives are right, there is skin in the game, but the competence may not be there and power always corrupts. At the same time...
Or the hunger may not be there.
Or the hunger...
I mean, people have their own self-conceptions about what their life is. So, are they willing to dedicate themselves to being this firm? Or the best person available inside the family may be, frankly, quite mediocre. So there are all these considerations. The family politics may throw up a certain person, but that person may be the wrong person.
So, and at the same time, I recognize your point about IIT, IIM wale professional, they are not a panacea to anything. They could make things worse. So how do I think about the transition? Because I can't get to design 4 overnight, but I am a family firm. I want the firm to survive. I want my family well to survive. I want the firm to grow. But I recognize my own limitations, and design 1, 2, 3 doesn't really make that much of a difference. What is that transition like?
So first of all, I agree with you completely. This is precisely the moment where hundreds of Indian companies are actually in this kind of internal conversation. And that's why I'm very pleased and happy that we are building this episode. This episode is the cutting edge of the evolution of firms today. This question is live. So what I would like to say to the people walking this journey is, the first is that IIT IIM is not a panacea, and family members are not bad people. That maybe the right solution lies inside the family, and maybe that so-called professional CEO is actually precisely wrong, because you got to think about all these things: the capability of the so-called professional, the time horizons of the so-called professional, the risk taking behavior of that person, the concentration of power, the human qualities of what will happen to a person when they are given power. Okay, most of us become terrible people when we concentrate power. All these things need to be thought about in a dispassionate way, without the Indian reverence for the IIT IIM guy. So then, once we decide that design 3 is not the panacea, we want to head towards design 4. Okay, so what are the elements of design 4? You need to think of a board. You need to disperse your shareholding. You need to create the culture of the board. And this is the hardest thing of all. You need to shift power away from the CEO in the hands of a family member, where the alignment is correct and the skin is there. It's actually better to have a great deal of power in the hands of the family member. But in the hands of a non-family member, having a lot of power with the so-called professional CEO is actually something to worry about. So in a way, step 1 is dispersion of power into a board dominated arrangement. It may be wise to do it before you bring in the professional CEO. It may make sense to first build a board as an institution. So in sequencing, I would suggest that it may often be better to disperse shareholding, get 3 shareholder directors, get 3 independent directors, get on the journey to build the board as an institution where power is shared between the board members. And that will require a remarkable human quality on the part of the present CEO to cede power. CEOs tend to be arrogant people. It's a very unhealthy thing. But this Indian landscape is filled with amazingly bad human qualities of CEOs. I have seen just disgusting levels of arrogance on the part of so many CEOs.
You've been on some boards also, haven't you?
More than 20. Okay, so I've seen so many firms from the inside in this. Similarly, in this journey, it's good to bring in many strategy advisors, because they're external people, and opening up to fresh thinking on strategy is a very useful thing. It challenges the incumbent management. Managements don't want to think strategy. The curse of India is managements want to do execution. It's their comfort zone. You go home and watch TV. You don't have to think too much. You don't have to face the imponderable complexity of the world, make difficult calls, and try to build a strategy. So a combination of strategy advisors, shareholder directors, independent directors, and a very self-conscious, self-aware attempt at shifting power from the CEO to the board, and using the board as a venue, the board as a forum for strategy, organization design, accountability. That is a journey to walk, and it will take years. It's not a small thing. It will take a long time for the better firms to create these institutions and to achieve success in that dispersed shareholding arrangement.
A lot of wisdom here, and Indians do tend to sort of look down on family firms, but at the same time, they tend to look up to people in the Western media who give gyan. So I'm going to link to this piece from the Harvard Business Review, what you can learn from family businesses. We'll link it from the show notes. And they broadly make 7 points, but the basic fundamental headline point is this, that in good times, professional run firms do better, but in bad times, family firms tend to do less badly. They focus more on resilience and performance. And a few of the takeaway bullet points are: family firms are frugal in good times and bad. They keep the bar high for capital expenditures. They carry little debt. They acquire fewer and smaller companies. And now, surprisingly, many show a surprising level of diversification. They are more international. They retain talent better than their competitors do. So, and these are findings about family firms across the world, not just, what is your sense of this? Does it correspond with your intuitions?
So I agree with everything here. The puzzle is, as you described, that there is an intergenerational thing. There is a generation that is finishing up. If there are, people inside the family with the hunger to take a company. Nothing like it. Okay. So again, I will favor a family-led strategy rather than an IIT IIM strategy. Okay, the family can potentially do very well. Everything that you say.
But a family-led strategy that goes towards design for, right?
That goes towards design for, but fundamentally the energy can be there, the hunger can be there, the alignment can be there, and you need to find ways of addressing the other problems. The thing is, many families don't have that choice. They don't have the internal capabilities inside the family or a next generation of the people who will take a firm going forward. And then you get to the inevitability of getting pushed towards design for. There are other reasons of firm history. A firm was built through venture capital and private equity. It went IPO. Now the PE investors are exiting. You are ending up at dispersed shareholding. Now you have no choice. You got to make design for work.
So Ajay, what's your recommendation for today?
My recommendation for today is actually a pure family business book, but it's a beautiful and well-written book. It's not about the design for, it's about a design 1 and 2, and it's called Father, Son and Company. It's by Tom Watson Jr. Okay, so this is the son of the great Tom Watson, who was the founder of IBM. The son inherited IBM. When the son started out, IBM was a funny feudal company where every morning people woke up and sang the company anthem, okay, things like that. And Tom Watson Jr., the son, rolled the dice on the world's most expensive operating system project. This was called OS 360. In inflation adjusted dollars, the expenditure on OS 360 was more than the expenditure on the Manhattan project. And he led IBM through all that. And his story and his understanding and his insight of what it means to build a great firm like IBM as a family business is in this book. It's called Father, Son and Company. And I read it when I was young, and it gave me great insights into understanding the challenges of a family business. And Amit, tell us your book recommendations for today.
It is both a book and it's a couple of films, 2 films about a family firm or, around this theme. Can you guess what I'm talking about? Legendary, 1970s. The first film won an Oscar. The second film also won an Oscar. They both won many Oscars. This is A Godfather. So the book is A Godfather by Mario Puzo, and the 2 films are The Godfather 1 and 2 by Francis Ford Coppola. And they are all masterpieces. The book is also bloody good. It is, one of those, oh, you have it. What the fuck? You have everything here. Or, yeah, okay. That's actually, or do you have something which looks like a book and has a screen, and any book that I name will just appear on it, that you can show it randomly? So great book by Mario Puzo, and the films are fantastic. Coppola is awesome. That is Coppola at his absolute peak, though I also loved Rumblefish, for those who sort of want to. So I have a sad story here. I suddenly remembered this, that when I was in Channel V, I was in Channel V between 95 and 97. That was my second job. And we had this wonderful man who sadly died a few years ago, Shamin Desai. And he was a filmmaker, and he also, I think, made one feature film a long way down the line. So one day he was in the promos department. He gathered a bunch of us, and he would do like this little film appreciation thing. So he had a dinky little recorder. So he sat and he gave a speech, and the speech was about how Coppola was making a film called The Outsiders, and at the same time as Outsiders, with pretty much the same cast, he made another film called Rumblefish. And he said Rumblefish is a masterpiece, spoke all about it and played it. And there were just like 5 or 6 of us. But it's a great film, a masterclass in film appreciation. So hey, I will recommend Rumblefish as well. And everything you talk about good corporate culture, it was right there in that room.